Sonia Rister from the McGinn Group. What makes you believe, Sonia Rister from the McGinn Group, what makes you believe this was an orchestrated campaign rather than everybody being equally misinformed and on message?
Well, you could call me old-fashioned, but I think that when 8 of the top officials say the same thing in 532 different venues, and it's the same thing, and it's all not true, and it happens to spurt up right during key things like congressional resolutions, midterm elections, UN decision, invasion. That's certainly not coincidental. So therefore, it is clearly orchestrated. Plus, we only looked at 8 officials. If we were even more anal retentive, we would have looked at, you could have looked at dozens of officials at both ends of Pennsylvania Avenue and done this really well. I mean, we think we did it pretty well, but I mean, really thoroughly, because what we don't know today is about how the orchestration was done. We know that it was orchestrated just by looking at what we found. What we don't know is who directed it. No one has email traffic, no one knows about meetings that were held and what days, and no one has stepped forward to take full responsibility for the campaign that was waged. It was a campaign like we've never seen for war in the last 30 or 40 years. We haven't seen a campaign by a president to go to war like this. I don't think perhaps since FDR, maybe back in the 60 years ago, but this is not a typical thing. Plus, the media is much more complex today, and it's 24/7, and the amplification through the web and government channel. Now you have the Pentagon News Channel. The government itself is sending out information. This administration, according to the Government Accountability Office, has spent double what the last administration spent in the first 4 years of the first term as what the Clinton folks spent. I mean, the hundreds of millions of dollars are going out into message, there's information managers. I mean, there are 450 public relations people who were added since 2001 to the federal government. So when you look at this whole apparatus in place, you look at just with 8 officials what we found, take that times 3, times 4, or even more. And that's, when you talk to people, particularly outside the United States, they can't figure out what happened over here. There was a fog, and why didn't anyone see this? Well, it's because no one could hear anything or see anything except what they were being told every day. I mean, I think there's some element of that. So that's why we felt it was reasonable to use the word orchestrate. But we also want to make clear, no one knows what we ought to know here. We don't know what they knew, when they knew it, and we don't know the details of the orchestration. So I think this is a beginning point to start a framework to understand those things, and what we can do now is show what occurred those years we lived through, and since too, with all the 25 books and reports, postmortems. We now have a foundation from which to work to build knowledge about what really was the truth, and what truth or false reality ended up being conveyed to the American people. And that is a really useful thing to do for obvious reasons, because unfortunately we do this with war. We did it with the Spanish-American War in 1898, we did it with Vietnam, and it appears we have had another war involving false pretenses. And so this is a habit here. It's also not a uniquely American habit. Philip Knightley has done beautiful work in writing a book called The First Casualty. Information has always been distorted around wartime around the world, and we seem to be particularly good at it. But anyway, other questions?